All right, my friends, we got two parts to this conversation that we need to have. We're in Matthew chapter 13. Jesus has just waved goodbye to everybody because he was out in the middle of a boat giving a parable speech about parables and how the kingdom is through kind of riddles and stuff that might confuse people, and some of them are getting it and some of them are not. It's like, okay, bye. And they go back into Capernaum, which is the little town where Jesus is operating out of, presumably into Peter's house where Peter's mother-in-law lives. And they go in there and they shut the door and they say goodbye to everybody. And I'm telling you, it looks like the way the text presents it, at least, that the second they shut the door behind them, the first thing everybody wanted to do was cover this. And last time around, I was like, look how quickly the disciples wanted an answer to the questions. But also this time around, let me just point out, look how quickly Jesus was immediately eager to and ready to explain the parable of the wheat and the weeds, which we read earlier in Matthew 13, 24 through 30. You know what? No, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to read that to you again so it's fresh in your brain, and then we're going to look at Jesus' interpretation of it. Here we go. Matthew 13, 24. Jesus told them another parable. So he's still in the boat. The crowds are all here still. The kingdom of heaven is like a man who sowed good seed in his field. But while everybody was sleeping, his enemy came and sowed weeds among the wheat and went away. When the wheat sprouted up and formed heads, then the weeds also appeared. The owner's servants came to him and said, "Sir, didn't you sow good seed in your field? Where then did the weeds come from?" "An enemy did this," he replied. The servants asked him, "Do you want us to go and pull them up?" "No," he answered, "because while you're pulling up the weeds, you may root up the wheat with them. Let both grow together until the harvest. At that time, I'll tell the harvesters, first collect the weeds and tie them into bundles to be burned, then gather the wheat and bring it into my barn." And then we get two little parables still from the boat, the one about the seed, the one about the yeast. And then it says, Jesus spoke all these things to the crowds in parables. He didn't say anything to them without using a parable. So was fulfilled what was spoken through the prophet. This is Asaph from Psalm 78. Quote, "I will open my mouth in parables. I will utter things hidden since the creation of the world." Unquote, verse 36. Then he left the crowd and went into the house, and his disciples came to him and said, "Explain to us the parable of the weeds in the field." He answered, "The one who sowed the good seed is the Son of Man. The field is the world, and the good seed stands for the sons of the kingdom. The weeds are the sons of the evil one, and the enemy who sows them is the devil. The harvest is the end of the age, and the harvesters are the angels. As the weeds are pulled up and burned in the fire, so it will be at the end of the age. The Son of Man will send out his angels, and they will weed out of his kingdom everything that causes sin and all who do evil. They will throw them into the fiery furnace, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Then the righteous will shine like the sun in the kingdom of their Father. He who has ears, let him hear." Okay, I don't know about you, but the boat version sounded a lot friendlier because the explicit language about judgment and God looking at how the things are and what y'all are doing and what you all are doing and separating that out into good and bad, that's pretty scary language. Anytime, as you and I have discussed repeatedly, that we get into the judgment of God, the teeth of God, the thing that is inevitable, you can't have a being with that much power and that much authority and that much rightness and not have that being have teeth. If any being is ever given to judge and judge correctly, it would be the God who knows everything and is unlimited in every way and is unbound by time and knows the motivations and mannerisms and actions of those he's judging better than those he's judging know them themselves. I feel like all of that might have almost worked. But my point is, here we go again with the curtain being drawn back a little bit on the terrifying, powerful judgment and righteousness of God. Isn't it interesting then, in keeping with the whole Matthew motif of eyes to see and ears to hear, and in keeping with our wrestling with that, like, why wouldn't God just make everybody's eyes open and make this super easy? Well, here's a little bit more clarification on that. If people in that crowd, while Jesus was standing in that boat in the public version of this parable, had ears to hear, then they couldn't help but catch that, oh dang, this is a powerful, intimidating God who has tremendous power and should be feared and regarded. These aren't suggestions or ideas. This is the ultimate truth. But if somebody hanging out by the boat didn't have ears to hear, I guess they would miss that. So by speaking in parables, once again, there's clarity and there's truth, but it's not going to strike everybody's ears and eyes exactly the same way, whereas there is certainly very little room for ambiguity in Jesus' interpretation of his own parable from verse 37 to 43 that we just read. So let's just break down the components today And then tomorrow we'll start working through what does it mean and what are the implications. Okay, the components. The one who sowed the good seed is the Son of Man. I think we all saw that one coming, right? So as we've seen already multiple times, this Son of Man title is one that Jesus really likes for himself. It's an allusion to Daniel chapter 7. We broke that down in an earlier episode. The original audience, especially the inner circle of disciples who were here in the house with Jesus, they would have known that he was conjuring images of the Messiah, of this unique chosen one. Again, we talked about all of that before. So much like the parable of the sower from earlier in Matthew chapter 13, the little data packets of the kingdom are distributed. In this case, it's made clear that that distribution is by the Son of Man. Jesus is the one distributing the word of God, making active the word of God in where? Well, the world. So the next thing we learn is that the field is the world. As we have discussed, there's often confusion on this passage whereby some folks will just maybe take a quick glance at it or not read the interpretation half of the passage, which is, a somewhat understandable mistake. I mean, it's separated in the text. Maybe they missed it. And they'll be like, the field is the church, and this is about church discipline and sorting out problems and fights that people have in church. I think you can make a much stronger case that the parable of the yeast points to that, but I'm not really sure either of them point to that. No, Jesus says that it's about the world. So Jesus comes into the world and he's like, here's all of this truth, kingdom truth, like say the Sermon on the Mount. And then implicit in this interpretation is that some of the seed works out and some of the seed doesn't. And the stuff that falls on the good soil in the field, it catches on. And this good seed that the master definitely knew was good, there's no problem with the seed. There's nothing wrong with this whatsoever. Despite the questions of the servants, this takes root and everything is working out. All right, so what do we got so far here? 1, Jesus, the Son of Man, is the one who sows the good seed. The field is the world, not the church. And the good seed is the sons of the kingdom. I assume that refers to the seed that catches, that works, that takes. That wouldn't be a reference to seed that failed or got choked out. The weeds are the sons of the evil one. Okay, all right, this is working out. So there's another plant in play here. The evil one, I think we all knew the enemy that infiltrated the field and sabotaged it was probably going to turn out to be the devil. No surprise there. It does turn out to be the devil. And so you've got the master's good seed that is going to produce a harvest, a crop yielding 160 or 30 times what was sown. And then you've got this lousy seed, which maybe is going to yield the same ratio of destruction, it could be argued. So you have these two things growing up in this larger field that is the world. You've got a mixed bag of stuff now. The next thing we learn is that the harvest is not right now. That happens later. And this one threw me for a loop. I don't think I would have caught this one just from reading the parable itself, but the harvesters are apparently angels. How does that work? I don't know. Maybe we'll try to break it down more later. So as the weeds are pulled up and burned in the fire, so it'll be at the end of the age, the Son of Man will send out his angels, and they will weed out of his kingdom everything that causes sin and all who do evil. So there's this big reckoning that happens at the end of everything. Somehow the angels play along in that, but the Son of Man is still the master of this harvest. He's still very hands-on with the whole evolution of this field. He's seen where it's been, he's seen where it's going, and he has a plan. The stuff that is broken and bad, the product of the seeds of the evil one, is going to be destined for destruction. And the stuff that is objects of redemption, of the glory of God, the seed that is the sons of the kingdom, they're going to be glorified and will shine like the sun in the kingdom of their Father. So in light of all of that, maybe the best way to describe what we get from Jesus here is not a point-by-point, here's what it means. It's the cipher. Because implicit in Jesus' answer is the assumption that anybody who has the cipher should be able to look at it and now have enough details to figure it out and to figure out the implications. And we are going to put that assumption to the test next time around as we try to break down what these implications are for the original audience, for you, for me, for all of eternity and human history. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm Matt. This is the 10-Minute Bible Hour podcast. Let's do this again soon.